growth and comfort cannot coexist. That is a universal law.
All right, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Fitz Franson Show. I'm Fitz.
I'm Franson.
This is the show where we talk about leadership, business growth, and what it actually takes to build something that lasts.
Without lying to yourself along the way.
And that is the part that matters, because today we're talking about a lie that most of us have been sold and probably sold to ourselves.
Yeah, a little background. We saw this clip online the other day. It was one of those short, dramatic, motivational videos that you get on social media. The kind you either love or hate. But in the message was undeniable.
Mm-hmm. It said, you don't build character in comfort. If I'm being honest, it stopped me in my tracks personally, because it's an absolute truth, if we're being honest. And it's the one thing that nobody wants to admit when they're chasing down a goal.
Yeah, man, everyone wants the outcome, the 7-figure business, the promotion, the fit body, the strong relationships, but nobody wants the price of admission. The price of admission is always, and I mean always, discomfort.
We've been conditioned to see comfort as the goal, that financial freedom is comfort, a smooth running business is comfort. But what if that's wrong? What if comfort isn't the goal, but it's actually the enemy? What if everything we're chasing or have been chasing is the thing that's making us weak in the end? Franson, I'll be the first to admit, I have certainly fallen in this trap myself. Years ago, my business hit a level of success that I'd been dreaming of and striving for. We had consistent revenue, a great team, very happy clients. By all accounts, I had made it. And you know what I did? I got pretty damn comfortable. Well, it was subtle. I stopped making the extra calls that needed to be made. I delegated the difficult conversations that truthfully I should have been having myself. And I probably chose easier marketing strategies over the ones that were maybe a little more difficult, or at least felt a little bit more risky and had potential. I was protecting what we had built, but in reality, I was probably suffocating the potential. And the business, it flatlined for almost probably not quite 2 years, but a year and a half or so. It wasn't until a new, maybe hungrier competitor came in and really started eating our lunch that I woke up. The discomfort of losing finally forced me to get uncomfortable again.
That's the silent killer, isn't it? Success-induced comfort. It's more dangerous than failure because it actually feels good. It feels like you've earned it. But growth and comfort cannot coexist. That is a universal law.
Sounds awfully familiar there, Jay.
Yeah, I've heard it from someone a time or two.
Definitely one of my favorite quotes of all time. There's no doubt about that. If you ever got an email from me, you might see it in my signature line there. I know I'm not alone in this. So what about you, Franson? Have you ever experienced anything like this?
Man, absolutely. There was a stretch here where I thought that what I was building was good or good enough. Good clients, predictable income, a nice routine. Regretfully, I stopped pushing. I stopped taking on projects that scared me. I stopped having difficult conversations. I was coasting, essentially. And coasting felt like success until I realized I wasn't growing. Even my skills were stagnant. I was comfortable, and I was, use a strong word, dying professionally. There's a reason we're wired this way, though. Our brains are designed to seek comfort and conserve energy. It's a survival mechanism. Stay in the cave where it's safe. Don't go out where the saber-toothed tigers are. But the world has changed. And that wiring is actually now a liability.
It doesn't sound like a overly fancy term, but psychologists call it the comfort zone. It's a state where things feel familiar and easy. We experience lower levels of anxiety and stress when we're in that zone. But here's the catch. It's also a state of zero growth. As one study from, I think the Psychology Today magazine or publication put it, mental and emotional gains, just like physical gains, they require stress and discomfort to promote that growth that we're all looking for.
Yeah, it's the principle of neuroplasticity.
Big word.
Good word. Your brain isn't fixed. It's constantly rewiring itself based on your experiences. But if you're only doing comfortable things, you're just reinforcing the same old neural pathways. I like the example of cow paths. If you have ever driven through the country and you go by a field that has cows in it, they eventually wear a path through the field or on the side of a hill, and that's the path they take over and over and over again. Neuroplasticity means that those paths can be changed, but it takes effort to change the path. when you are stuck reinforcing old pathways, it's like the cow walking the same path every single day, and you're not building any new ones.
Yeah, it's a good visual, a good way of thinking about it for sure. So discomfort is a good tool because what it does is it helps to send signals to your brain that it needs to adapt, needs to learn to grow. It literally triggers time for learning and leveling up. So when you feel that resistance, that's not a sign to stop, although many people probably take it that way. That's really the sign that you're at the edge of growth. You're right there knocking on the door.
Yeah. Resistance. I love that you use the word resistance. In this conversation that we're having reminds me of a book I read years ago, and it still comes up here and there. It's called The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. If you haven't read it, we can throw a link in this episode, but check it out. He refers to anything that gets in your way as resistance. Today, we're calling resistance comfort. Comfort gets in the way of growth. This connects directly to what we talked about in our last episode about identity. Remember, quarter one doesn't test your goals, it tests your identity. Well, your identity is forged in discomfort. The person you become on the other side of a challenge is different from the person who went in. That's the whole point.
We mentioned the clip that we saw earlier, and I love the metaphor from the video. There was a quote in there. I think it went something along the lines of, a challenge is like a forge shaping the steel in your character. Let's break that down because it's not just a cool phrase. It's really a process.
First, you have the heat. This is the pressure, the challenge, the thing that makes you want to quit. It's a difficult client, the failing marketing campaign, the personal crisis, the conversation you've been avoiding. Without heat, the metal doesn't change. It stays rigid.
Exactly. After the heat comes the hammering. This is the repetition, the discipline, the consistent effort, even when you're not seeing results, which happens constantly for us through these processes. It's making the calls, doing the reps, having those hard conversations day in and day out. Each strike of the hammer strengthens and shapes that steel into what we're hoping it becomes.
And finally, you have the quenching. This is the rapid cooling, the recovery, the reflection. After the intensity of the heat and hammering, you plunge that steel into water. This is where the change is locked in. It's the weekend of rest after a brutal week, the post-mortem on a failed project. It's where you integrate the lessons. You can't stay in the fire forever. You can't be hammered forever. The recovery is just as important as the stress.
That's really the true, forge of discomfort. Heat, hammer, quench, pressure, discipline, recovery. That's the true cycle of growth. And most people run from the heat, they avoid the hammering, and they skip the quenching. And they're left wondering why they're not getting any stronger or better.
Yeah, it's almost like you are just choosing the heat, because heat will happen. The challenges will happen. But you have to lean into the hammering and the quenching.
You can't skip any of those.
Yeah, right. You gotta do the whole thing. The Stoics understood this over 2,000 years ago, and I am a huge fan of the Stoics. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of Rome, deliberately slept on the ground and wore clothing as a young man. The crazy thing is he didn't have to. I mean, he was royalty. He could have chosen comfort, but he was building his inner fortress.
Yeah, Seneca said something that really still resonates today. I wrote this down so that I'm still going to probably butcher it here, Franson, if I'm being honest, because it's got some kind of those big words and that old language in there. But what he said was, set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, is this the condition that I feared?
It's a good quote.
Yeah, it's a really good quote. What he was practicing was discomfort, so that when real hardship came, he was ready, he was prepared. And he entered the forge of discomfort on his own terms. One of the things I think about with this is, you and I have talked about this, I'm one of the crazy people that does the cold plunging in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm being honest, I don't know that I actually get any physical benefits out of it other than I'm old and it helps me from feeling the pain of working out when I do work out occasionally. But there is something about it, I think, that I get out of it, of forcing myself to do hard things and knowing that I've started my day by doing a hard thing, right? But I think it goes right in line with this of, by putting myself in there on my own terms, I know that when something kind of punches me in the face, I'm ready to go because I've already conquered my own thing that day as well too. So again, really cool quote, and glad I didn't butcher it because I wrote it down.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, my wife was talking to somebody that she just had tremendous respect for, and she was sharing some of the fires that she was in. And for her, there was a kind of the conversation was around fear. The person she was talking to said, the best way to solve this is when you feel fear, just face it. And that's kind of in this example of the fire. When you feel the heat, lean into it and understand that it's going to be shaping you. So we do talk about business on this podcast occasionally. And so if you want to see what happens to a business that worships comfort, look no further than Kodak. A lot of you guys probably haven't actually seen a physical camera in like a decade, but years ago, 1975, a Kodak engineer invented the first digital camera. Crazy to think that that was like 50 years ago.
Hmm.
And really, if we can really visualize the level of technology at that time, they literally had the future in their hands. But what did they do?
Oh, they buried it. Why? Because it was uncomfortable. It honestly, I think really because what it did was it threatened their, incredibly profitable business. They were so comfortable being the kings of film that they refused to step into the discomfort of a new and at that time uncertain technology. They chose comfort over character, and at the end of the day, it cost them everything. And I think it was roughly 2012. Sound about right? They
Yeah.
filed bankruptcy.
Yeah. And Blockbuster did the same thing. If you guys remember Blockbuster, I remember late fees.
Mm.
They had the chance to buy Netflix for 50 million. I know we're talking in huge numbers, but that would have been such a deal back in 2000. They actually laughed Netflix out of the room. They were comfortable with their late fees and brick and mortar stores, and that comfort ended up being their death sentence.
When we were looking up examples of this, I had to laugh. For instance, I found Nokia was a good example of this one too. I actually still have my Nokia phone up in our attic. I wonder if I turned it on, if I could still play Snake on it. But Nokia was a good example of it. I don't know if you remember this or not, but they once controlled 40% of the mobile phone market.
Yeah.
They were the undisputed kings of that industry. And when the smartphone revolution came, they hesitated. They were very comfortable with their existing product line. And by the time they tried to adapt, it was too late.
Yeah.
They sold their mobile division to Microsoft. I think it was around that same time frame. Kodak went under, so it was like 2014-ish timeframe.
Yeah. And we've seen a lot of tech upheavals in the last 2 decades. And so we watched a lot of businesses rise and fall. The lesson is clear, actually, in business. If you're not deliberately seeking discomfort, you are dying. You just don't know it yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Look, this applies to the employee who never takes on the stretch assignment, the manager who avoids the difficult performance conversations, or the entrepreneur who sticks with the same strategy because it's working. Comfort at the end of the day is without a doubt the slow death of potential. Look, Jay, we've kind of talked about the doom and gloom of this, but I think this isn't just about like the philosophy, and we always try to tie things back to what can we provide for solutions, right? So we want to give our listeners something that they can use this week. What we're going to do this week is we're going to call that thing the discomfort audit. For this point here, it's going to be something simple. What we want our listeners to do is ask themselves 3 questions that we've come up with.
Yeah. So question 1, what is one conversation I am avoiding because it's uncomfortable? Think about it. Is there a team member you need to give feedback to? A client you need to have a difficult discussion with? Or maybe a partner or spouse where something's been left unsaid?
Question number 2, what is one skill I'm not learning because the process is frustrating? Maybe it's public speaking, financial modeling, new software or technology, something would make you more valuable, but you've been putting it off because, I don't know, the learning curve is just too steep.
A lot to learn out there. Question 3, what is one physical or mental challenge I'm putting off because it's hard? A workout routine, maybe you keep starting and stopping, a meditation practice, waking up earlier, reading more, something that would improve your life but requires consistent discomfort.
Franson, reading more felt a little targeted, if I'm being honest.
Well,
yeah. So look, this is probably not a surprise, but here's my piece of advice after the 3 questions. Write your answers down. I can't stress that stuff enough. I think that makes them real. Write them down. And here's the follow-up to that. No fluff, no. This isn't for anyone else. This is your map to growth.
Yeah. Yeah. Your answer to each of those questions is a doorway. On the other side of that discomfort is a stronger, more capable version of you. So your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to pick one and walk through the door.
Here's the key insight. You don't have to do all three at once. Pick one, preferably the one that scares you the most. And the reason for that is probably the one that matters the most. Start there. Enter that forge of discomfort on your own terms before life forces you or kind of pushes you off the cliff to do so.
Yeah. Yeah. And if someone's thinking, yeah, but my situation's different.
Bullshit. Bullshit.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Look, you can keep convincing yourself of that. And I guess, at the end of the day, then it will be. But look, everybody's going to have a different excuse, but the result's still going to be the same.
Yeah. Yeah. Sidetrack here, right? Rabbit trail. This triggered a thought. I used to, in my hometown, Havre, Montana. You guys can look it up. Middle of nowhere. Churches oftentimes put some catchy phrases on their signs out front. And there's a church on the main strip. And the phrase said, "Just remember, you're unique, just like everybody else."
Mm-hmm.
I think that we can all collectively agree that in the sea of humanity, we're all in the same situation.
No
So
doubt.
the truth is that though the specifics to your situation may be different, the journey isn't. Marcus Aurelius was running an empire during a plague. Seneca was exiled from Rome. Cato walked around in rags when he could have worn silk. They all had reasons to seek comfort. They chose discomfort anyway.
The difference between people who grow and those who are stagnant, it's not the circumstances. It is the choice to embrace the hard thing when you could easily avoid it. One of the things I teach my son on a regular basis, I will ask him, "What do we do?"
Mm-hmm.
And he will respond every day, "We do hard things." And I ask him the follow-up question, "Why?" Because we can.
Yeah. So we kind of started this episode saying that comfort is a lie. It promises safety, but delivers stagnation. It promises happiness, but delivers fragility. The truth is, the only path to a life of meaning and a business that lasts is through the fire.
Here's our dare, or double dog dare for you.
I double dog dare you.
Don't just listen to this and say, "Well, that was interesting," right? That's some comfortable, right? The uncomfortable thing to do is to take action, complete the discomfort audit, have the conversation, and start learning that skill. Embrace the challenge.
Yeah, because character isn't given, it's forged. And the process is the prize. If you got something out of this, don't just keep it to yourself. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. If you would, like, subscribe. Let us know in the comments what's the one uncomfortable thing you're going to do this week.
Well said, sir. And look, thanks for tuning in today, and we hope you've enjoyed the episode. If you did, we always appreciate you ringing that bell and liking and subscribing, like Franson said, and let your friends and colleagues know where to find us. If you didn't, we always appreciate you keeping that to yourself. Jay, always a pleasure, sir.
Yeah, likewise. We'll see you next time on the Fitz Franson Show.
Happy hunting, everybody.